We need to tell the truth. The truth is, Washington is corrupt.
The phony scandals.
You like your current insurance, you keep that insurance. Period. End of story.
Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi.
Dude, this was like 2 years ago.
I've got a pen and I've got a phone.
Because if you got a business, that you didn't build that.
Defend the Constitution. All of it.
But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it.
Your weekly 60-minute slice of common sense conservatism and ADHD is about to begin. Broadcasting from the Kensington Place studios, it's Jason DeWilkins, and it's time for According to Me.
From the Kensington Place studios, this is According to Me, Barack Obama and John Boehner's second most hated internet radio program. The 2-hour show that lasts 60 minutes. And folks, we have an action-packed evening. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this today's show. The internet. You hear me right now because of it. All the propers I just mentioned involve it. You're tweeting at polititainment.net or at polititainment because of it. You're in a chat room right now because of it. I mean, think of how life is different. For mostly better, but in many instances, worse sometimes because of the internet. Many consider it a right almost at this point. Many lobby that just like electricity, just like gas, just like water, telephone, internet needs to be regulated. And this, my friends, brings us up to the main topic on this week's According to Me. That's net neutrality. Now, this involves the FCC. And the FCC is announcing essentially on February 26th what their overall position is going to be, even though they've already kind of leaked that out there. The question is, will the courts allow them to do it? Will Congress allow them to do it? It involves the government flat out having a role in the way the internet works. Now, on the right, if it involves the government, our knee-jerk reaction is, big government takeover! Let capitalism work. You can't trust the government. Which is usually the case. But on the left, you have, well, someone needs to regulate it to make sure these evil corporations don't screw over the people. I mean, the government needs to do that. Well, let's break it down for you. For the next couple of minutes, I want to pretend as if you know nothing about net neutrality. And if you do, maybe it's a refresher. But we need to know how we got here. For starters, as it stands, the FCC has been given the right to do this. Now, whether they should or not is not very debatable. They shouldn't. But do they have the right to do it? Well, they're not necessarily overstepping their boundaries because they were given those boundaries in 1996. I mean, Congress created information services very generically. You have to rewind time. I know it's hard to do that, but think of what the internet was in 1996. And what information services offers them the capability for generating, acquiring, storing, transforming, processing, retrieving, utilizing, or making available information via telecommunications. That was, quote-unquote, information services. I mean, it's pretty ambiguous, right? But then in 2002, the Supreme Court, in a court case, also ruled that information services fall under the FCC's call. But again, even since 2002, how much has the internet evolved since then, let alone by, its inception? I mean, no longer, let's be honest, can we call the internet an information service. Instead, the FCC wants to call it, and understandably so, a telecommunications service. Weird thing is in 2002, the FCC lobbied to the Supreme Court that it was an information service. Now in 2015, they're saying otherwise. That's the weird thing here. But again, in fairness, is the internet the same thing now as it was in 2002? Could you make the case right now that it is a telecommunication services? I think it could. I mean, how many phone calls are made over the internet? How many video conferences, movies, television shows are 100% online? That's just not information. But can you argue it's no longer informational services? Well, no. See, in 2003, net neutrality was coined as a way to describe a fair internet where all traffic is created equally. Those who support net neutrality point out cases like in 2007 where it seemed like Comcast was limiting peer-to-peer connections. And, of course, you have the major case involving Netflix and Comcast, in which Comcast was throttling Netflix speeds and their internet connection. See, it's big evil corporations trying to screw over the people, right? That's why we need net neutrality. Well, here's the counterpoint to that. Comcast, Verizon, other internet services spent billions and billions of dollars to create a pipeline, so to say, to their customers for their customers. And being an ISP, you try to grab as much profit as possible, but still allow yourself to be able to be a profitable business and to be able to provide a service to your customers that they are expecting and that you pay for and, quite frankly, that you advertise. It's not 100% profit. There is a cost of doing business. And when you look at the Netflix Comcast situation, Netflix was generating lots of revenue, not using their own ways to actually manage traffic, but putting a lot of that traffic on the internet service providers. Comcast being the number one internet service provider in the country, the largest at least. 40% of Comcast's traffic was by Netflix alone at one point. So think about it. You created the pipeline. You spent billions of dollars creating your pipeline. 40% of it is being used. So the 60% of everybody else who has Comcast has to fall in the 60% pipeline. So what's going to happen? If you try to cram all the other traffic into the 60%, you have slowdown. You have dissatisfied customers. So Netflix customers are loving life. The guy wanting to watch YouTube on his laptop may see less than ideal internet speeds. And God forbid if Comcast doesn't deliver 105 megabytes per second, like promised, because you'll be calling them to bitch, right? So they limited the bandwidth capacity for Netflix subscribers, which resulted in a huge controversy. Netflix was pissed, customers were pissed, and the left, of course, was pissed because it gave them ammo for net neutrality and evil corporations to be pissed at, right? So how do they settle their differences? Money. You see, Netflix wanted to make sure their services worked well, and Comcast accepted an amount of money that they would use to increase capacity to allow Netflix subscribers fast speeds for streaming video. Capitalism, that's crazy. So Netflix has happy customers, so does Comcast. Now, again, let's look at it from a business standpoint. I am providing a large pipeline for my customers to access the internet. I'm charging one rate, whether they watch Netflix 24/7 or they're on Craigslist 24/7. Again, however, when 40% of my pipe is being used by customers who are paying another company for a service using my pipeline, I'd be concerned, wouldn't you? Is it fair for me as the internet service provider to limit bandwidth in order to protect the performance standards we as a company have set ourselves and for our customers? And if you, the business owner, invested billions and billions and billions of dollars to deliver a service, then to be told exactly how you can and can't use the pipeline, you okay with that? If that pipeline isn't performing to standards, again, is the customer calling Netflix or Comcast? Hint, they're calling Comcast. They're not calling Netflix. They're not calling Amazon Instant to bitch about it. I can tell you that. Again, I'll let you decide your thoughts on that. But that's the counterpoint from a business standpoint. So this issue really brought net neutrality back to the forefront. The Comcast Netflix argument really made those saying, see, evil Comcast slowing service down because they can. They shouldn't be able to just pick and choose how fast or slow anyone gets content. See, we need regulation against these bastards. This is where it began again. This has been something that's been out there since 2003, but make no mistake about it. This was the momentum the left needed to create net neutrality. Problem is, there's way more to net neutrality than that. Is the FCC being in charge any better than Comcast? Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's next on According to Me. Welcome back, folks, to According to Me. So maybe after the first part you thought, if that's all net neutrality is, that's not so bad. I mean, yeah, the government's involved. There's always going to be a motive, and it rarely is ever truly a benefit to those they claim to serve, the people. But I mean, as John Oliver called it, if they would just change it from net neutrality to preventing cable company effery, I won't say the word, that's Bunny's job, because then people would realize what it's all about. Again, a compelling case can be made in favor of it. But again, what else is behind net neutrality? Because it ain't just about a free and open internet. And that's what we're going to discuss. Would you believe it's become political? No. In Washington? Get out of here. You see, both sides paint their viewpoint as the other side is in bed with big corporations. And there is some truth to that. Because both sides are saying they're standing up for the little guy. The left, again, attacks large corporations and say, how could a Facebook have ever existed if a big, mean corporation decided it didn't like Facebook and wanted to impede the speeds of how you could connect to it? By making the internet fair, everyone gets a shot, right? That's the same argument for wealth distribution, right? It's not fair that rich people have all the money. Everyone needs a chance, and government is just the ones to help make it right. Government has your back, right? But the right then says they too speak for the little guy. Well, how do you say that you're supporting companies who can pick and choose how they manage the internet and then allow customers to do what they want to do and not to do? And that is where I point out the hypocrisy there. The largest lobbying company in Washington is Northrop Grumman. Lobbying group essentially involved in the industrial military complex. They kind of lobby Washington into spending a whole lot of money on defense. Those guys, they're number one, Northrop Grumman. Number two, Comcast. The largest television and internet service provider in the country, spent $18 billion last year for favors in Washington. Now, the relationship between Comcast and this administration especially is sickening. One of the president's most frequent golf buddies? CEO of Comcast. So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to believe that the side that time and time again has had the back of Comcast when it comes to mergers that practically make it a monopoly and then accept the second most amount of money in Washington for re-election campaigns and look the other way, vote in our favor, and will handsomely financially reward the same side. Those guys are doing everything they can to prevent big evil Comcast from owning the internet, so to say? What? Do you honestly believe that? Of course not. You can't. You shouldn't. So the same side taking all the money from Comcast, the same side who plays golf with the president, the same side who spent the second most amount of lobbying dollars in Washington are the ones that Washington's going to pick a fight with? Do you believe that crap? No way. See, in the end, when government and corporations get in bed with each other, somebody gets screwed. And that's the customer. Now, think of regulations involving water and the costs involved with that. Think of the costs involving the regulation of natural gas and electricity providers. Who pays for those additional regulation costs? Hint, it's not the companies. It's you. The cost of energy going up, the cost of water going up. You think that's just because those commodities themselves, quote unquote, those utilities themselves are going up in cost? Or is the government making them do everything to be safe, to be environmentally friendly, to do all of these things that they have to fall in line to do to even have a business? Again, are they paying for that or are you paying for that? Same result will happen.